It's red. It's gonna be red. Um, oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, the stigma is just attached to the silence. It's attached to it in a way that it develops that fear, it develops the distrust of the adults in your life. And then maybe there is that little girl that did tell and no one listens. So if it continues or happens again, she not gonna tell nobody again. Or maybe she gonna have to become an adult to be able to, get the courage to be able to speak up. And she gonna be like, oh, and let a cousin tell her, oh, it happened to me. Oh, they not gonna believe you. Oh, you might as well not tell nobody because they just gonna say you was a liar or you was fast and it was your fault and you asked for it. And it's so many reasons and things and different dialogues just surrounding, this particular issue till it's just been normalized and so frequent that till it's just what we do as black folks, and it gotta stop. It gotta stop, especially when I find myself having to explain basic common things to people who you would think would just be basically common. Wrong is wrong and right is right. I don't care who the person is or how powerful or strong or big or mighty or what they've been to you in your life or what you believe to be true. Wrong is wrong and right is right, and you should be on the side of right. And that's just it.
And I totally agree. And I know you mentioned earlier, before we started, that you were abused as well. Did you have a defining moment that made you decide to say something about it?
Yeah, so the first time when I was a little girl, I was 3 years old and I was molested by my uncle. And the memory was suppressed until I was a teenager. I was 16. I was watching a talk show and they was talking about abuse and molestation, and the memory just flooded. It came back to me and I wrote it down in full and complete detail and I gave it to my mother. And she then called my father, and then they told some more people, but then that was it and nothing ever happened.
Mm.
So it was just like, oh, okay, like, I don't know. I guess it's not important enough to do nothing about. I guess they don't care if we get justice. I guess they don't care if whatever goes on. It's just like, oh, okay, that happened. They was upset at the moment, and then it just went away to nothingness. So then the second I would really, I guess it was abusive. Well, yeah, statutory rape is abuse. When you consent, but the person is too old and they should know better. I guess that's still a form of abuse. Even though at the time when you're a part of it, you're not really aware. You don't view it like that. So it took for me. Of abuse. Even though at the time.
I agree. And
Okay.
like,
It took. Go ahead.
think did we lose somebody? Oh, okay. No,
No, it was a delay.
okay. Yeah, it's
So
bounced around
yeah,
because
I
it
was
ended
saying
up
like,
ended up being on ended up broadcasting it on YouTube, and then
okay,
transferring the YouTube over to my Facebook. So we're still
okay,
live. We're still live.
okay. All right. Well, so yeah, I was saying, the second time, like the statutory rape, and then the mishandling of me at the church. I felt compelled to speak about it, because it was always treated like it was no big deal or it was nothing. But things were taken from me, as a minor child. That I didn't have the power to take away from myself, like my singleness, or the fact that I had to be signed into a contract to be married. I was not adult. I could not make that choice for myself. So, and it was based off of advice that came from a pedophile, that came from a person that believes in, grown men having sex with little girls or having sex with young women that are, far beneath their age or not at a legal age to consent.
Hmm.
So the past couple of weeks, all of these girls and all of these stories have been compelling me to, fight for what's right, because it's just too long, it's too much quiet, it's too much protection, it's too much silence, and it's too many cases, and it's just been way too long, and the time is now. And if nobody ain't gonna say nothing, I'm just not gonna be one of those people. So I was very much compelled by the outpouring of stories and the amount of thank yous, because nobody ever believed us. It was so many, nobody ever believed us. Thank you for just believing us. So that has pushed me forward to become a part of this fight.
Right. And it's those defining moments that you decide that, okay, you know what, no one's within the house is going to do anything about it. So now I got to take matters into my own hands and go elsewhere. And
Right.
so, and that's, again, another um, important reason to go outside the home, because whatever's suppressed in the home is going to be just that. It's going to be suppressed and it's going to stay there. So now
Mm-hmm.
you're, victim, to your own environment because of
Right.
a situation that you don't feel you're not getting help anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
so, but and Tanika, same thing with you. You wrote a book, and shared your story, shared what happened. And so for those who haven't read the book or don't know your story, just briefly, tell us your story and what was your defining moment that made you decide to, no longer be silent about it.
Well, my story, I have been a victim of my abuse started as child abuse. My mother, still to this day, she doesn't see it as child abuse. She sees it as doing what the Bible says: spare the rod, spoil the child. But there is definitely a difference between a whooping and abuse. There's
Yeah.
definitely a difference between the two. So it started off as a child, and my mom would tell me what happens in my house stays in my house. So when I would go to my dad's house or to my aunties, or if they couldn't know how I was being whooped or whatever, Tanika act like she's scared. Tanika scared of me. Tanika was scared as hell of her, but I couldn't let them know that. But
Right.
so that's what it started off as. And because I had got so used to the abuse, well, this is what happens basically. You become programmed. This is what happens when somebody loves you, because she would, well, I'm only doing this because I love you. She would tell
Right.
me that. I'm doing it because I love you. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't do this to
I
correct
wouldn't
you.
do it.
I'm,
Or this
I'm
going or
correcting
this going
you.
or this gonna hurt me more than it hurts you.
Exactly. So I was
Shit,
programmed that
that ain't hurt.
when someone loves you, this is what they do. So it
Mm.
kind of like, it became where I was molested by, well, she calls it, because it wasn't penetration, it wasn't molestation, so it wasn't that serious. Her
Mm.
then boyfriend that she married afterwards and showed up to court on his behalf, uh, that happened. And then as I became a teenager, because I was so used to the abuse, when boyfriends would hit me and stuff like that, oh, he doing it because he loved me. I ended up marrying my first husband. It was domestic violence. The defining moment to leave in that one, because I kept going back after we would always fight. I would keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. The defining moment is when, this was even after I had to stab him to get him off of me. I thought I killed him, but I didn't.
Dang,
We were
that
fighting.
was
Yeah,
sound like you needed it.
yeah. He did it. He was gonna kill me that night. We were getting into a fight, and I had a newborn, my son. He's about a week old, and to try to get to me, he knocked my son out of my hand, and my son fell on his head. This is a newborn.
Mm.
Thank God he fell on the futon that was right there, but he still fell
Right.
as a newborn. You're so enraged to get to me that you knock our newborn son out of my hand and almost fell on the ground. So that's when I left him to come to Florida. And I met my second husband. Outside appearances, it seemed like he was perfect. But because I still hadn't healed and hadn't loved myself, and basically what I was doing is trying to fill that void, because I didn't know how to love myself. I was looking for anybody who would show me that love, anybody who would love me. And because he showed me that love, I missed all the red flags, like
Yeah.
all of them. Now, looking back in hindsight, I see how he was grooming my children. One part of grooming, a lot of people don't realize, when you'll have a parent or a step parent or somebody, you'll notice that your kids always seem to clean them. They always seem to some way make you seem like the bad guy,
Yeah.
so that the kid clings to them. So no matter what happened, I would say one thing and he would always go against it, so that the kids would kind of almost like,
Cater
mama's
to.
almost hate me, and they would cling to him. He gained their trust, he gained their loyalty. So therefore, when he would start doing things to them, they wouldn't say anything because they loved him. All they saw was the love and the trust that they had already built. He had groomed them, he had prepared them, and he
Hmm.
systematically molested three of my children, all three of my girls. So the defining moment is when that came out. I literally had like a nervous breakdown. When I say a nervous breakdown, like a nervous breakdown at work, where I had to be literally escorted to my car. They had to call the employee assistance program to get me some mental help. I mean, it was, I literally was at job saying, I don't want to live anymore. I can't do this. I'm just ready to go. I can't do this anymore. And they were like, what? I'm like, life. I can't do life anymore. I'm done living. I can't do it. That was my defining moment
Wow.
at that. Yeah.
And you think back and all the things. It's very important to, mental health is definitely a very important, aspect that people don't talk about, and that in itself definitely causes a lot of mental health issues, especially when when you keep going in the same situation, not realizing how you got into it, when it really was more of a generational curse that has happened. And so, like you said, um, they do it because I love you, and so you thought, okay, well, if they don't hit me, then they don't love me. So go ahead and beat up on me. Go ahead and do whatever you got to do, because that way at least I know you still love me. So that's a psyche that most people play, because it's being passed down to generation to generation. And so somewhere down the road, you have to be able to break that generational curse. And I'm so happy that you ladies um, took a stance and broke those generational curses, to not be able to get passed down to your kids and your immediate people who are around you, that you're in charge of. Um, so I commend you ladies for doing that, and those who are out there listening right now, definitely you want to speak up. You want to speak up, speak out, and I know you probably want to go to the person within the family to say, hey, listen, such and such is doing this. But like we've heard already, don't worry about it, baby. It'll be okay. Well, maybe you did this, or maybe you did that. Blaming you as the reason why you got what you got done to you. So I definitely understand that part, and I'm proud of you all for, you know, finding that defining moment and saying enough is enough. So I'm gonna go to the next question. I know that little piece, can kind of relive some of the nightmares that you had to go through, and I commend you for your courage on being able to speak about your story. And a lot of this you kind of already alluded on about why does it go unreported for so long. So let's go back and think about that. Unreported. So are we talking about to law enforcement, or are we talking about within the own family member? Because from what I'm hearing, everything was done internally as far as being reported. So when we talk about unreported, are we talking about the police or within the home?
I think we're talking about everywhere. One of the big reasons I think it goes unreported, and I'm not just saying telling people in the family, even when you tell people outside of the family, which I experience, I know Sophie experienced, Danielle have experienced. When we go public, you have to think about it. Abusers are very, very, let's just say, skilled at hiding their true self.
Yeah.
They know how to keep up an appearance of who they are out in the public. So everyone on the outside sees one person, but in the inside, in the house, you see a completely different person. So because they have built up this image or this status or this power, the people around you, when you come forth to try to tell even authorities, or when you come forth to try to tell people outside of the house, a lot of victims are met with public discrediting
Mm-hmm.
or humiliation. And it's like, man, I'm telling you what's happening, And I'm telling multiple people, I'm trying to tell people, and you're met with so much disbelief. And it can just say, you know what? I'll just keep it to myself, because do you know how hard it is for somebody to finally come forth with their story? And when you finally come forth with your story, it's like pouring salt on your wound. You keep telling me, well, if it happened, well, I don't believe it happened. If that, I mean, do you know how much that hurts?
Oh, absolutely.
It hurts.
And saying
And
why now?
even,
The biggest
go ahead.
be like, why, what do you mean? Why now? Like I have a motive or something. And it's not the case at all. Like,
Yeah, and that's usually the case with, I mean, I'm sure you all, heard the story about, R. Kelly and the victims coming out, not just him, the Bill Cosby's of the world, why now? What is the motive? And so that's become I guess you can call it a norm behavior of coming out so late. And now it's like, what's your motive behind it? Why did you just now decide want to say something? So like, what do you have to say in regards to that? Like, it's like the boy crying wolf, you must be up to something versus saying, okay, yeah, it took you 17 years to finally say something. Why now? Why do you think that typically happens?
So I think the why now is I don't know why people feel entitled to be informed of your abuse. I'm not really sure, because I've been getting a lot of that like for the past couple of weeks. Like, well, why haven't they been saying nothing? Well, why now all of a sudden? Or why are they so special? Or why them and not me? Like, all of this mess is so rude and ignorant to
Mm-hmm.
say, to a person that has survived or been victimized by abuse. Like, it's so ignorant on so many levels. And I really think that it's just pure ignorance. Like, people do not know, people are not educated on how to deal with victims of abuse, or if you're supposed to deal with it or talk about it or whatever. So, excuse me, I think that the why I didn't report or why you took so long just comes from most people are living in a clear state of denial. They have these people placed on these pedestals, and they have these ideas of them in their minds, so they couldn't ever be, capable of such heinous acts, just like they do the celebrities. That's why they can't believe it, because they celebrate them so much in their talent and their gift, so they forget that they're just humans, just like us. Like, they are so human, and humans are flawed, and anybody is capable of anything. And when people stop glorifying people and, over worshiping them, or over, idolizing them, and making them this kind of like untouchable type of being or character, which is all false,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe it won't be so hard to understand, you know, why I didn't tell, because look how y'all act about this person. Nobody ain't gonna listen to me. And even if
Yep.
they do, they're gonna be like, you're insignificant, they're so significant, so we're not gonna listen to little insignificant you, and we have big significant him or her. So it's just a combination of that stuff that I think gets people, with well, why you didn't say nothing until now?
Right. So let me
So
let me
I
let
have
me take that
one
take that.
interject really quick.
Oh no, go ahead.
It's not just telling people too. In my experience, when my daughters, first of all, my daughters didn't tell me right away, because, like I said, they were groomed. So this is a man that they loved. So it took
Right.
them many years before they finally broke down and told me. And the night they told me, I called the police to make a report. The night they told me. But guess what? Because even though it was three girls telling their stories, even though it was three girls who all had psychiatric evaluations, and Child Protective Services says, oh yes, they post-traumatic stress disorder, and yes, they have, you can tell they've been molested, because there's no physical evidence.
Mm-hmm.
No physical evidence, no witnesses. It's just their three words against his. And of course, when they asked him, what did he do? Deny, deny, deny. And he has this image in the public The lady, I mean, the officers were just really real with me. Child Protective Services was just really real. I'm just going to tell you like this. She says it's going to be an uphill battle. She says, I'm going to let you know that the chances that you're going to win this case is slim to none. She says, and I'm
Mm.
going to tell you what the lawyer is going to do. They're going to get your kid on the stand. She says, and they're going to relive that. She says, and they're going to badger them. Do you want your child to go through that? And I made the decision that it wasn't even worth it. But she point blank told me these cases are hard to win. That's
Wow.
another reason why it goes unreported, because even when you report it, the way the justice system is set up, it's not really set up to protect us unless it's something detrimental, like we're almost killed or
Yeah.
we're raped and then there's DNA left down. It's no way to really protect you against molestation.
Especially when it's old. Did it happen today? Was it this week? Was it last week? Can we do a
Oh, and
rape kit? Can we
did
prove it?
somebody see? Can we prove it?
Right. Who
Exactly.
Right.
else was there? It's all type of just to you. You
Right.
will go back into yourself, back into your little shell, close back down, and be like, "Well, I'm
Hmm.
not talking to nobody."
And see, and that's where I wanted to transition over to is that uh, what advice would you give people who are going through that, or if they ever go through that? Is there a timetable on when you should say something so that you don't get those stories of why you wait so long? You know, when did it happen? Well,
Well,
it happened 17 years ago. It happened 10 years ago. Well, why you tell me when it first happened the same day? So should they tell right away and just like don't worry about what ramification may come after that? Like what we'll just go around. We haven't heard from Soph in a minute. What do you think? Did we lose Sophie?
Sophie, can you hear us? Sophie,
But
Sophie.
can you repeat the question? Because it was kind of, I had a little interference.
Oh,
It
okay,
was
no
just kind
problem.
of coming.
Well, the
Yes, can you
question
hear me?
was, is there? Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Oh,
She on a
Yes,
yes.
delay. She on a delay.
Okay.
yes.
Yes, there it is. Okay, yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
We hear you,
Okay.
Sophie.
So I think she. Okay. All right. So
Okay, I can hear you.
all right. So the question was, is there a timetable when someone should say something? Like, what advice would you give somebody to say, hey, tell your story when you're ready, or tell it right away now?
I feel like you tell your story when you're ready because sometimes it's not safe to tell your story. Sometimes I feel like it's not the right time. And another thing about telling your story at certain times is that um, you might not feel you you might be it might be different factors, like it might be family but you still want to go around your family, or you might want to, what I'm saying, it might, when you tell your story, it's going to be a ricochet or it's going to be a domino effect. It's a lot of factors that go into telling your story. So like with the person I told in my family when I was telling my story, for example, and she was saying, why are you guys just now telling me? I just can't believe you guys, you guys are grown now. If you would have told me back then, something definitely would have got done. And I was just saying, well, maybe I said, well, for one, you're asking us now, so we're telling you. I said, because it's kind of been suppressed because we still want to come around. We just kind of make distance, with that person, and we still want to come around the rest of the family. I was like, and so you can't really say, why are we just now saying anything? I said, maybe we feel safe enough to say anything. And we know that I'm grown now. I'm a mother now. I'm an adult. You know, I'm on my own now. Like nothing can happen to me. No retaliation. No any. You know what I'm saying? Nothing can happen to me if I talk now. You have to feel safe enough too. So that's my point with it.
So it sounds as if you tell the story when you're ready to tell it versus when it happens, say something right now. So is it more of a build
All the
up?
time safe, because me and my siblings were foster kids.
Hmm.
So if we were told, it would have been, I don't think it would have been safe to say anything, you know, because we weren't the only ones. So that would have just it would have been bigger than us just, it would have been bigger and it would not have been safe at all. I don't feel like, you know.
Because naturally, from what I've seen and from what I read up on, sometimes the person that's going through the abuse tends to show signs without saying anything. Um, do you feel that anyone can, answer this, that you showed signs without saying something and they were just ignored, or maybe they noticed it and was kind of like, what's wrong with her? What's going on? Tanika, you wanna?
I showed signs and my kids showed signs. So with like even in my book, one part of my book, I talk about how my mother seemed to be so frustrated with my behavior where she sent me to live with my father. My father was so frustrated with my behavior that he literally got a black garbage bag one day, one of those big garbage bags, put my stuff in it and dropped me off on 107, 107th and Vincennes at my church and waited for my mom and told me to wait for my mom when she gets to church. And in the book, I say, both of them keep passing me off to the other because they're talking about my behavior. I'm like, but are either one of them trying to figure out what the heck is going on with her? Why all of a sudden is she acting like this?
Yeah.
So yes, there are definitely signs. And what I noticed with two of my girls, with all three of my girls, they would have depression, then they would have anger. When I say they would be so angry at times, they would go from 0 to like 2,000, like super quick. And there's so much anger, depression, and then two of them had the hypersexuality. It was just like, I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And it wasn't until first I'm like, what is going on? Something is really going on with these kids. And it wasn't until they told me that it all started making sense. This is why they were acting out.
Wow. And that's the key element of showing signs. Because most of the time, is you're gonna show the signs, and once you see those signs, now it's like, okay, what's wrong with you? What's really going on? So now you got to have that conversation to a point where they'll hear it. It's like, okay, maybe she does care, maybe he does care, or maybe he does want to know because I've given you signs and now you're showing interest in what's going on. So now I can open up and tell you versus me just coming out saying it. And so most of the times when people go through abuse in that nature and they finally tell somebody and they move past it, now here comes the next step of taking it out on a person that actually truly does love you. So at what point do you start the healing process to know what? I can move on now to be with somebody.
Think
I think
healing.
that's the individual. Oh, go ahead. Oh, you may go. Okay. Yeah, I think that's an
Yeah, go ahead.
individual timetable. I think that that's based off of each person and their healing phase. Because for me, for a long time, I would just go like relationship to relationship to relationship because I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I always had to be with somebody. I always had to have somebody showing me love and caring about me and worried about me and taking care of me until I got to a point that I had to pause and just take some time and just love myself and work on myself. And I started the counseling, and I started talking about things that I had never talked about or dealt with. And so then I began to heal and I began to get whole, where I could get to a place that I was ready to move on and become back a whole woman, and not that scared
Mm-hmm.
little girl or just lost or just broken. You get to a point where and
Right.
it's been just, recently over the past few years that I've been able to, I might have looked like I was all right, but I really wasn't. I was a total wreck. And I really just have been getting my big girl panties on, so I could
Mm-hmm.
be, okay, for real, okay, and give love and share love and, parent more, effectively and just a whole rounded person. So I think that's based individually on people and their healing.
Okay. Now, once you've gone past that healing, and this is for Sophie, Once you've gone past that healing and you feel that, okay, you know what, it's time for me to go on and, you know, start dating, or now you find this great guy, um, who is madly in love with you because of what you are showing him or how he feels about you. Is there a point where you have a choice now? Hey, listen, this is what happened to me when I was growing up. Or do you just not say anything? Because there's been so many times, I mean, even, you know, with the Tyler Perry movie, I believe it was what was that movie, my dear's Big Happy Family, where the daughter was being molested by the dad, you know, and didn't realize that why she acting this way. Oh well, she's always been like that, you know,
Yeah.
but and never told her husband what she had gone through, you know.
Right.
And even the mom, she knew it, but she didn't say anything about it either. So do you feel that it's your responsibility to tell your past and what happened, or just rely on the fact that you feel that you're healed enough? He don't need to know about that. He just needs to know who I am and who he fell in love with.
Well, that's funny that you would ask that, because that actually uh, have been a theme in my relationships that I didn't even catch on to until somebody pointed it out to me. I have a son, but so when I would date and stuff like that, I didn't really, you know, I mean, watch him, of course, around, but it wasn't like that same way what you would do if you have a daughter that you're raising and you're dating, while raising a daughter. It wasn't the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. But when it comes to like domestic abuse and stuff like that, because I also experienced physical abuse as a child. So by the time I started dating and stuff, even if it was like a joke, I'd be like, as long as you don't put your hands on me, no problems. Or I would say little
Right.
stuff like, I'm just gonna tell you right out the gate, I don't do, you know what I'm saying? And because I don't know how I'm gonna react. Like I would say like stuff, but like kind of jokingly, but still kind of like, you know, and people were like, well, I'm not, girl, nobody trying to put their hands on you, girl, you crazy. To kind of be. Then one guy I was dating, I said it and it kind of alarmed him. He was like, put my hands on you? What are you talking about? Why would I do that? Like, what
Yeah.
are you talking about? And I'm just like, no, I'm just saying, that's just my thing. Like, I don't deal with that. Like, he was like really concerned, and his concern kind of came back to me like, oh my God, did I just, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, show my damage. Oh my God. Like, and it was kind of like, it wasn't embarrassing, but it kind of was like an awakening. Like, this is not, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not a normal thing to, to tell somebody, if it comes up, of course, but just like to automatically say when you are dating somebody after a while, it's like that's kind of like off-putting a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's when I started to see like the the damage that it actually did, has done, but I don't feel like you have to do that, because sometimes you do want somebody just to get to know you, the version of you that you are, and then the closer you get with them and the safer you feel with them, then you start to be able to tell them things, because sometimes people cannot handle certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make sure they're even worthy enough to handle, your thorns, because all they see is a rose sometimes, so you got to
Yeah.
make sure, that they are worthy, and that takes time. So, you know.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And at this point with, you know, for Tanika, um, you know, you had to go through two marriages before your defining moment took place. And and now do you feel that individually you should be able to say something before you decide to get serious? Or is it a wait till it happens, or wait till the right time? Like if a situation comes up, because you don't, people ask 21 questions, but they don't say, hey, have you ever been abused as a child? Have you ever been beat up on? Those are not questions that are in getting to know somebody type of deal. It's like you find out based on a circumstance that happened. So is that something you feel is a voluntary need to say, or a need to know case by case?
Well, for me, this is like the first Like I like dated casually just one person before this, but this is the first relationship that I have been in since I left my husband in 2015, and we were like very transparent. Like that was first conversation. Hey, I'm just letting you know if this is gonna work. I'm 40 years old. I don't have time to waste. We're gonna keep it 100. I mean, full transparency. I'm gonna tell you some things that might be uncomfortable. I'm gonna need you to let me know if you can handle them or not. And I need you to tell me anything, no matter how uncomfortable you think it's gonna make me feel. But we need to be completely transparent with each other. And I'm like, and before we begin, I want you to read my book. And I gave him my book. I said, read it and call me back. And I had him read my book and call me back. And he sat in silence for like the first 5 minutes.
just in awe, like
Yeah, like completely in awe, because it's a lot.
you
Like,
start looking under these pillows and
yeah, I
cabinets,
mean,
and
it's a lot. Like, so for you saying,
it made you
shit,
think.
he saw this. He had this picture of this rose. He saw who I am today, but to see all those thorns and stuff, and he's like, "Whoa,
Hmm.
whoa, I didn't expect that." So yeah, no, with me, yeah, I'm coming right out because I want to know if you can handle it because I'm not gonna waste my time. I don't have time to waste. I know no.
Okay. And that's very important as well. I'm gonna tell you some things that may be uncomfortable, and you're gonna have to have that uncomfortable talk before moving on. And with like so many, it's been, I'll tell you if it's necessary. Me personally, I think that's something that you should tell before you even decide to go serious. You don't want to tell everybody that you decide to date, because now they know your business. Now they know your business,
Hmm.
whatnot. So I definitely think it does come down to um, finding within yourself. I think we need to talk,
Exactly.
because whatever is in their mind or what they planned on doing can actually change their mind. Especially with people of who have been raped and kept it from their significant other, and they didn't find out until, I don't know, a picnic or something, or something happens, and all of a sudden it's like, why you never tell me this, and da da da, and you don't know how they're going to react. But now y'all already deep into the relationship, and because you held that back from them, they may feel a type of way. So Danielle already said it's all up to the individual, you know, how they feel about it, So it's that's it. So before we wrap up, I want to go around the horn real quick, and I want you ladies to um, give your closing thoughts on people out there that's listening and watching. What advice would you give to them? And I'm going to start with Danielle.
Well, my advice would be, um, first to mothers. I would like to advise mothers to develop a close relationship with your children where they feel safe enough to be able to tell you everything, because that's one thing that I made important, because my children actually lived with their father. So he'd be like, why you always asking them all them questions? Because that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a private investigator. I'm gonna ask. I'm doing body checks. I'm gonna ask, and you gonna make them. Nope. I'm gonna keep asking and checking. I'm watching behaviors. I'm checking and I'm asking, and we are talking, and we are talking about everything. So my kids, they tell me stuff. Like my daughter told me she was uncomfortable visiting the church with said perpetrator. She was like, Ma, it's not right. Something's not right there. I don't want to go there. My mother and my sister would try and make her go, and from mother to daughter, I told her, you don't ever have to go there. And whenever you feel that feeling that you feel right now in the pit of your body, that you think something is wrong, you listen to it and you follow it, because it's usually right. So that would
Hmm.
be my advice first to mothers, to develop a relationship that's strong enough that your children can trust you to confide in you when things are wrong. And to victims and survivors, don't ever feel hopeless and helpless and alone. And if you have before now, you now have us three. And if you ever feel hopeless and helpless and alone, then you know that you can call Danielle, and you can call Sanika, and you can call Sophie, and we're gonna listen, and we're gonna believe you, and we're gonna help you, and we're gonna kick some pedophile ass.
Mm.
So
Say
that's
it
my
again. Say
advice.
it again for the people in the back.
We kicking pedophile ass from here on out.
Yes,
We are
yes.
saving our babies from these black predators. And they not all white, they ain't all Catholic. Yeah, we got white devils, but it's some black ones too.
Mm, Very well said. Very well said. Uh, Sophie, you have the floor, ma'am. What are your closing thoughts? What would you like to, what message would you like to leave the audience?
Um, let's see. I'm trying to think. A message I would like to leave the audience is basically to all the survivors that I would like to say, um, you are not crazy. Your story is valid. Your story is important. Even if you never tell anyone, your story is important. And I was chatting with a friend over the past few days, and I said, ever since I came out with my story, I've had an influx of support and just a little bit of backlash and a little bit of hate and questioning and I said, but one thing about just even that little bit of negative energy that came my way, even though I was able to deflect it,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it kind of made me question myself and my story and like certain details. And I said, I think I need to write down, like, what I'm saying, everything. So when my brain starts to turn against itself and say, now it didn't happen like that, or you embellished that part. It wasn't even that bad. It wasn't, when your brain starts to go against itself, which I also found out is a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain is trying to function through trauma. So one of the things it does is it lies to you and it blocks out, like, you can have like a chunk of history that you do not remember.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, and that's from having the trauma happen to you and hearing about it. And I know that personally because certain people that I would say, you remember this? They were like, no. Or it'll be different in their mind because their brain is literally trying to pick up the broken pieces and like, okay, we don't need to remember this, we don't need to remember that. This is what happened. Okay, breathe. Now we're gonna continue like that. Your brain literally does that as a coping mechanism to help you be able to function in society. So I said I need to sit down one day and write down all of my trauma and just so when my brain starts to go against itself and tell you that, certain things, I could just say, no, I'm not lying. No, I'm not being dramatic. Yes, it did happen this way. No, I'm not leaving out details. No, I'm not putting in details. So that's one thing I would like to say specifically to any victims that's out there. Because a lot of people, when they were writing me, they were saying, I know this happened. I know I'm not crazy. And I'm just like, no. And I had to tell a lot of people, like, your story is valid. You remember your story, how it happened. You're not lying to yourself, and I had to like kind of reiterate that to a lot of girls. And a lot of them, they didn't want their story out. Like I was doing a PCAF abuse thread where
Mm-hmm.
I was like asking girls if they wanted to come forth anonymously or openly, they could, I would be their platform to let their
Right.
voice be heard. A lot of girls, they wanted to go forth anonymously and some wanted to go forth openly. But then it was some girls that just wanted to be heard and they just wanted that validation that I believe you. You're not crazy. He was wrong. You were a child. He should have protected you instead of taking advantage of you. That was not supposed to happen to you. They just wanted that little validation. And they were like, oh, no, I don't want my story posted. I just wanted somebody to talk to. And I just felt like, wow, you know what I'm saying? We opened up a whole platform just for women to even just want to be heard. Because a lot of them, I'm sure y'all got inboxes with a lot of them like, even the people that would show support be like, yeah, please don't post this, but I support you. I love you. I believe you. Please don't post. This is anonymous. I'm like, you don't have to anonymously show support, but I'm like, okay, I get it though, because they just want
Yeah.
to, So that would be one of the main things I would I would say to the any victims that I watch or victors, I learned to say that too. Somebody said, stop calling you and others victims. That leaves them in that space. They're victors, like victorious. They are past that.
Yes.
I said, okay, but I still have to correct myself because I'm used to seeing the victims,
Yes.
So
Yes.
victors, that's one thing I would like to leave with them.
Awesome. Awesome. And Tanika, last and not but least, you have the
I
floor.
would say, first of all, I want them to know that when you go forth, not all the time you're going to have that family support. Not all the time you're going to have the friends who support. And it's okay. It's okay if they don't support you. It's okay if they don't believe you. Don't stop telling your story. Don't tailor your story because your family doesn't want it known. When I was writing my book, I literally had family members calling me asking me, well, what are you going to put in your book?
Hmm.
Are you going to put this part in your book? Are you going to put the, it's your story. Don't let anybody silence your story, no matter how it affects them. Your story has nothing to do with them. Your story is for your healing. Your transparency is for your healing. There is healing in your transparency. What I learned as I was writing that book, even though I was bawling as I was writing, I was actually healing something inside of me because I
Hmm.
was actually telling it.
Yes.
So don't let anybody silence your story, and don't let anybody make you feel bad about having to get mental therapy, mental health. Don't do that. Another stigma in our community is if you go seek therapy, something wrong with you. Oh, black people don't go get counseling. Black
Mhm.
people don't have therapy. It's okay. If you need to talk to somebody, go talk to somebody, and don't let anybody make you feel about doing it.
Wow.
And I had just a note to add to
That's
that, if
amazing.
I could.
Yeah.
I remember someone saying it's not your fault what happened to you, but it is your fault. It's not your fault what happened to you, but it is your responsibility to do the work to heal yourself.
Yes.
And I
I agree.
remember hearing that, like, that's kind of true. Because if you don't heal yourself, you are doing a disservice to yourself by staying bitter, angry, and you know what I'm saying. And a lot of things. And another thing I want to talk to the victors about when stuff because I was talking to somebody in my family and they were complaining, I guess, saying, you know what, I'm just sick of this whole thing coming up every few years. You guys let something trigger you guys, and I'm just over it. And I'm just like, well, yeah, that's a characteristic of trauma. You suppress it, and then something triggers it, and it pops up, and you know what I'm saying. So obviously, something is there that's not getting healed. Something is there that wants to be seen and addressed. That's what trauma is. But the person that was like over it was saying like, trying to like desensitize the whole thing, I guess. So that's another thing. If trauma keeps resurfacing it, if you don't feel comfortable talking about it or coming like calling your abuser out or calling for accountability, because not everybody is built like that. It took me years to just like, you know what? So and everybody's built like that. So even if you don't feel comfortable with that, still like Tanika said, I'm sorry, still like seek therapy for it.
Right. Absolutely. And everything is. I agree with everyone 100%. And and just to give my closing thoughts on it, um, something that my mentor Anthony A.D. Davis of absolutely determined. He always talks about the Band-Aid effect. Okay. And some listening to what everyone has said, and you're going to get triggered or you're going to do this. All it is the Band-Aid effect. You put a Band-Aid over a wound that needs surgically healing. And if you keep putting that Band-Aid on it, it's going to start seeping again, and you're going to have to pull it off, and now you're back to square one. So being able to be responsible to overcome it, that's when we all need the surgery. And so when we have that Band-Aid effect, we have what is called continuing that generational curse, because you haven't had that surgery to where now you can end that generational curse. So and it sounds like everyone has had that surgery that's needed in order to end that generational curse where it left at. And now you're sharing your story with others who also want to end that generational curse. And so I commend you ladies for allowing me to, moderate this important discussion, because I think this is something that needs to be talked about, doesn't get talked about a lot. And I know that, we're going through uh, some tough times right now in America as we speak, and things like this tends to get pushed to the back burner because they don't feel like it's important. No, it definitely is important, so I'm glad that you all, chose me to, moderate it and to get that point out in the midst of everything that's going on, so I thank you all for that. And before we go, did you guys had any social media pages that you want to shout out for women who want to, follow you or get in contact with any of you? I'm gonna start with you, Sophie.
Well, I can be reached on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for under Sophia Trophy on all platforms.
Okay, Sophia Trophy. Okay,
I can be reached Danielle Shante on all social media. I think it's Danielle Shante like 77 or something on Snapchat. But Danielle Shante, you should be able to find me. I got a couple of groups on Facebook too. I have not began the one for this exact mission yet, but you can always just inbox me or whatever. My number's on my page because I do business on Facebook too. So feel free, anybody, to reach out to me to tell your story, because we need all of the stories that we can get to,
mm-hmm.
Strengthen our movement.
I agree. Tanika.
On Facebook, I am author Tanika Latrice, and that's Tanika, and Latrice is Latrice. The domestic violence website, Facebook page is Bruised But Not Destroyed. Our Instagram is Bruised But Not Destroyed, and my Instagram for our personal is Nika Latrice 79.
And for everyone that probably didn't have a pen to write all that down, I am going to do you a favor, and I'm going to have everyone's social media handle on my page. You can follow me at the TJ Chapman Show um, on all platforms, and I will have the information there. If you all enjoyed, this live, video that we're also streaming via YouTube, you can also subscribe to our YouTube page as well. And these are just some of the topics that I discuss on my show as well, which airs Tuesday nights on the Cultural Radio and the Cultural TV. And so, so situations like this is what I use my platform for, to bring awareness on topics that tends to get pushed behind or being uncomfortable to talk about it because they don't want to say anything or tell their business and make people think, look at them some type of way. So again, I thank you ladies for having me to moderate this. Um, Keep doing what you all doing. You're doing a wonderful job, especially breaking that generational curse and helping others to heal, as well as to speak up and speak out and have them feel great about themselves, so that they can now move to get that surgery. So um, I will do something that I feel is very important, and that we're going to uh, do a quick prayer before we go, because this is very important,
This
because
is a
we
God
all
thing.
need prayer. So um, this is the part before we do benediction. I guess this is the benediction, ain't it? Where the pastor start praying,
All right.
But I promise you, it ain't gonna be one of them long prayers, and then you start doing it. Lord, nah,
Right,
it's
because
gonna be
I be
quick,
like
straight to the
this. When
point.
it gets too long, I'm gonna be like this, TJ. I'm be like,
Then
The
you're
one
gonna you're
thing.
gonna you're gonna you're gonna have that usher on back, turn around, can't leave here. So, but yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and do a quick prayer and send it up. Send the prayers on up. So just real quick, just close your eyes, bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you right now. We bow down heads and our hearts. We thank you for all of the wonderful things that you're blessing us with, and those that you're going to continue to bless us with. I thank you for allowing these beautiful women to uh, step up and speak out on what has happened in their past, and allowing them to get the courage to say enough is enough and speak out to help others. I ask you to continue to bless them, keep them, and continue to build them up to make them strong so that they can help those out there that is having a difficult time. We ask you to continue to help build change within our communities, help build change in America that's going on right now, Lord. So we just ask you to continue being there for us like you have always been. And as we leave tonight, we ask you to watch over us, be a shield, protection around our homes. Let no hurt, harm, or danger come over us. These many blessings we ask in your Son, in Jesus' name. We pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Good.
All right. Well, good night, ladies.
Thank you,
All right.
TJ. Thanks,
Good night,
Nika. See you
TJ.
soon.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Y'all be safe, and
All right.
blessings and peace.
All right, peace.
Same
Bye.
to y'all. Bye.
Bye.